Hello and a warm welcome to today's webinar, which is brought to you by Shared Services Link in association with Taulia. Today we're looking at being proactive, persistent and passionate, as it takes to be a real change maker in purchase to pay. So a warm welcome to you all. My name is Susie West. I'm the founder and CEO at Shared Services Link. Really thrilled to be presenting a great friend of Shared Services Link, Debbie Moehlich, who is Senior Director and Head of North America Shared Services at Evoqua Water Technologies, and Beth Sears, who is Director Business Consultants from Taulia. As always, you have a key role to play to make sure that you get your questions answered. Post those through to me, please, nice and early, and I'll put those through to Debbie and to Beth in the last 10 minutes of the webinar. You'll want a copy of the slides as well. They will be made available up on sharespace.digital. So let's now talk about the context for today. So driving change in purchase to pay and wider shared services is essential. And that's really what you're here to do. It's to drive change and improve processes and improve operations. It's essential to significant, huge transformation programs that you might be in the middle of or might have just ahead of you. And if you're not in the middle of a transformation program, then chances are your shared services organization and P2P operation is somewhere on the continuous improvement journey, and ongoing continuous improvement is the expectation from your customers, from your bill payers, your leadership team. So there's always this expectation that change will happen within P2P, within shared services. However, with all that in mind, it's quite interesting when you start to look at all of this to get an understanding as to how little a change resource is actually invested in within shared services. Shared services invest in change resource, I would say, on a rare basis. Many shared services organizations are just expected to manage that change with sometimes without formal training, without a permanent change resource in place. So this is why being a natural change maker in P2P, in shared services, it really helps drive results, and it really helps keep the peace, and to foster a culture which you can be proud of, to make sure that there's, it's not a toxic environment and people are not unhappy because of the change that you're driving through. So managing change to get the results and managing change to keep everybody happy is really, really important. So that's really what we're going to be examining today. And we talk a lot about P2P because P2P really was the first process area to come into shared services, and it's in shared services 99% of the time. So driving change in shared services and in purchase to pay, it is challenging because you are expected to see these improvements all the time, but also because of the scale within a GBS. Shared services and GBS is normally only done by companies that have a $500 million turnover or more. So with that revenue size, you're obviously going to get thousands of suppliers, thousands of transactions, purchase to pay transactions, and thousands of users that will somehow be affected, be it in procurement or buying or somewhere across the process flow. And all these components have to buy into the change in order for you to then create that change. So they all need to be educated and trained, and they need to be trained on what the new process flow is. So connecting with each and every one of these individuals so that they can conform to your new reality, and to do so in a healthy manner, it's challenging. So Debbie, I'm very pleased to say, is brilliantly placed to share her changemaker story. She'll be talking about her experiences in a number of shared services organisations that she's worked in, and she'll also be drawing on a current programme that she's working on with Taulia, and the change processes and methodologies that she's applying to that. So this is really Debbie's show, and then towards Q&A we'll be introducing Beth, who'll be taking more of your questions alongside Debbie. So before we kick off, let's put 2 poll questions out to you. So poll question number 1, let's have a little look here. Does your shared services have a dedicated change resource? So yes, we have someone or some people overseeing change. Yes, but they also have other responsibilities. Maybe you personally oversee the change and it's your main role. Maybe you oversee change, but you have other responsibilities. Or no, we don't have change management resource within our organisation or within shared services today. Closing the poll in 3, 2, 1. We're about 52% of you responding. So let's see if we can nudge that up a little bit more. 3, 2, 1. Let's have a little look. See what the results are like coming up on your screen. Okay, so 17% plus the 8%, so call it the 25% of you. So a quarter of you say that you have dedicated change management resource, or it's the main role. Then we move into about 42% of you say yes, but have other responsibilities. 42 plus the 8%, so 50% of you have the responsibility for change management, but you have other responsibilities as well, so pretty much split. And then 25% of you say no, we don't have change management resource today. So thank you for participating in that. Let's move to the next question, coming up on your screen now. If you are the change maker, so for these those of you that really are the ones that are expected to drive through change yourselves, were you given formal training on managing change? So yes, I've had change management training. No, but I've had lots of practical experience. No, but I'm learning as I go. No, this is very much a challenge for me, or maybe you're just not leading change. So 27% of you responded so far. Let's try and get that number up a little bit more. I know it doesn't apply to all of you, but if you could let us know, if you are a change maker in P2P, were you given formal training on managing change? Closing the poll in 3, 2, 1. Let's have a look at the results coming up now. Okay, so the majority of you say no, but I'm learning on the go. And then we've got 20% of you saying yes, I've had change management training, thank you. Or 20% of you saying no, but I've had lots of practical experience. So you can see that the trend there is that the majority of people responding to this poll are saying no, I haven't had formal change management training. Good, thank you very much. And now I'd like to hand over, please, to Debbie. Over to you, please.
Yeah, thanks, Susie. So good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, everyone. Very happy to be here today and looking forward to sharing my experience on how I've been able to drive change in the P2P and shared services space. So yeah, my name is Deborah Moehlich. I am the Senior Director and Head of our North America Shared Services Center here at Evoqua Water Technologies. I am based in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where our company is located. So for today, as I mentioned, I'm going to share a bit on my journey in P2P transformations and how my focus on being proactive, persistent, and passionate has really led to driving results and some of the successes that I'll highlight on this call. So, with that, why is being a change manager even needed in the P2P space? Why is that even a thing? So let's kind of start with that, and I'm sure everybody can relate. We all have competing priorities. There is a lot going on. I would say even over the past year and a half, 2 years, with the world changing due to COVID, things have become even more pressing and more urgent. There's so much going on. So the procure to pay space is really critical, right? We're paying our suppliers. We need to keep our supply chain going. The P2P space is an excellent area for automation and for streamlining processes. So as Susie mentioned, it's typically the first or an absolute definite work stream that is resident in shared services. So it's really critical to focus on getting that work stream right. It's highly sensitive, and I'm sure a lot of you can relate to this, in accounts payable. If you've got one thing wrong, maybe it's a payment, low dollar payment to an infrequent supplier. If that gets any kind of escalation, then the whole process is broken. So it's really important to always manage change and improve how the P2P processes work. And then also, why is change management hard? So many of you do have either informal or formal training in change management. We all know it's hard. So managing change is really critical because you've got a lot of people that you're interacting with. There's always change management that's needed. What I've learned from my experience is that whether I've led a formal change management program or whether it's part of my day-to-day, is it never stops. It's typically not an event that has a start and an end date. It's managing change is something that you do all the time. So there's always end users, there's always stakeholders, there's always suppliers, there's always naysayers that you always need to stay in touch with and to manage change with. So with that, I will start with, I'll start with an overview of Evoqua Water Technologies. So again, our company is based in Pittsburgh, about $1.5 billion company, and Evoqua is a leading provider of water and wastewater treatment solutions, offering a broad portfolio of products, services, and expertise to support industrial, municipal, and recreational customers. So we have a more than 100-year heritage of innovation and industry firsts, market-leading expertise, and unmatched customer service. So although we're a relatively young company under the name Evoqua, we have a lot of history as being part of Siemens and some other large companies. So it's an awesome company to work for. I relocated 3 years ago from Atlanta to Pittsburgh to join this company, and it's just an amazing company. The purpose of the company is transforming water and enriching life. So it's a very essential company. Many people don't know the name, but the benefits of what our company does, everybody does realize that. So my journey in shared services. So let's see here. So I'll talk a little bit first about the shared services landscape here at Evoqua Water Technologies. So we do have shared services, started 3 years ago. We've got North America shared services. Our business is primarily North America based. I'd say probably 85% or so of our company is North America based. So we've got a discrete North America shared services center, and then I have a colleague in our international location that manages the shared services functions for the rest of our business outside of North America. So we have a captive and an offshore model. So we've got an onshore group in Tewksbury, Massachusetts, outside of Boston. So we've got a small group there and some other ancillary, functions or locations for our captive shared services. But we are primarily supported by a third-party provider that is located in Pune, India, or Manila. So both of those locations, they work our Eastern time hours. So that has worked well for us, and I don't think that's too uncommon for a lot of our shared service center concepts. Our international location, again, is primarily based in Germany, but we have operations all over the globe. Singapore, UK, India are also some of the key locations for our international shared services. The system landscape that we have here at Evoqua is we're an SAP shop. So we have most of our businesses on ECC6, and anyone on the call, anyone that is familiar with SAP knows that S4 is the most recent or most current, at least for us, version of SAP. So we have a small part of our business on S4, and eventually we're going to be migrating all of our business units over to S4. So our system landscape is SAP, and we also have other systems like Taulia, which I'll talk about a little later, supporting our P2P operations. So doing a bit of a double click on the North America Shared Services Center and functions. So I have the work streams listed here for our shared services. So procure to pay, starting with procure to pay, we've got our procurement operations and our accounts payable supported in our offshore location in Pune. So we have six resources onshore, and we have 18 resources offshore. So that is our total team size. The retained team in all cases here for all these work streams, the retained team consists of process owners and also support for those process owners. In our procurement operations, we've got the rec to PO conversion and quality process there. Our procurement operations team also supports some of our internal buying technology solutions. Our procurement operations team will research blocked invoices for resolution, so we are sure to pay our suppliers on time. And then accounts payable, of course, is part of our shared services center. So we have, about 300,000 invoices on an annualized basis. We have partnered with Taulia, and we are reaping a lot of benefits from utilizing that solution for automation. Also within our shared services location, our North America Shared Services Center, we've got order to cash. So that consists of credit management, AR collections, cash applications, some billing support. So most of the onshore team, the number that you see there, 16, most of the onshore team there is onshore collectors. And then we've got a team in Manila of about 20 folks who support our order to cash function. We do have collections offshore that's worked very well. Also within our shared services, we have record to report. So we have one process owner stateside, and we have 4 resources offshore doing reconciliations, journal entry processing, reporting, and some other support and analytical activities. Some new areas. So we started off with those key work streams in our shared services. And so over the past couple of years, after we become stable with P2P, order to cash, and record to report, we've actually expanded our shared services. So we have, as some folks, some of our leadership has said internally here, is we've earned the right to grow. So that was a great feeling for me. Really proud of the results that we've delivered, and proud of the team members that are making it all happen. So we've earned the right to grow, and we have expanded our shared services operations to include HR functions. So that includes payroll, North America payroll support, and also some other HRIS and other HR operations functions. We've also built into our shared services center master data, so master data support. So that includes customer master and vendor master. So we've got 5 team members offshore in Pune that are performing the master data operations support function. We also have some support for logistics, our e-commerce website. We've got a lot going on with our e-commerce growth, so we've got some support and shared services for that growth. And then really exciting for me is some recent developments in the automation space. So we are leveraging an RPA tool, and just over the past 6 months, we've implemented a couple of bots in our order to cash space where we have basically created 2 FTEs. So we've automated 2 FTEs worth of work. We've freed up that time. We haven't reduced staff, but we've increased our capacity. So that's one of the benefits that being a change maker in the P2P space or in shared services in general allows us. So kind of being innovative and thinking about those next steps for automation. So I'll talk a little bit now about my journey in shared services, some of my specific experience here. So it's some prior companies that I've worked for. So, about 4 years ago, I kind of changed my career path a little bit over into shared services. So the first part of my career, I was in FP&A. financial planning and analysis, worked at various companies doing FP&A. And I found that in that role, I was kind of always challenging how things were done and the systems that were used. So I moved into implementing some processes and systems, and then kind of, picked up on that's really a theme of what shared services is all about. How can you become really efficient, improve quality through automation and standardization? So at one of the companies that I work for, a large home improvement retailer based in Atlanta, I migrated from FP&A over to financial operations. So in that role, a decision had already been made. So I came in kind of midstream on the shared services journey. It wasn't called shared services at the time, but the decision had been made to leverage a third party to perform our accounts payable operations. So it was a pretty large amount of spend. The scope of the spend there was about $17 billion in AP. So, and that wasn't even the total AP, that was part of the AP. So I had a colleague at the time, and so she and I worked together to execute the migration of accounts payable from onshore within the Atlanta office to an offshore party in India. So the transition took a while. The migration was smooth with the third party, and the end result was having the third party performing operations offshore and retaining a team. I've not been in any role in shared services where we have not had a retained team. Those are the process owners, as I mentioned. Those are the onshore support for escalations, if needed. So that operation became stable. And I had an opportunity to move over to another company, a financial technology and services company, about $4 billion company. So in this role, a little bit different, right? Starting at the beginning of the journey. So the shared services was a concept. The procure to pay was one of the work streams that was a concept to move into a shared services organization. So within this role, the real genesis of this project was an SAP implementation. So the company had grown pretty tremendously through acquisition. And so there were about 50 different instances of ERP systems, maybe the same ERP, but about 50 or so different instances. So pretty dispersed there. In terms of the efficiencies and the way that the systems worked. So what that also came with is within each acquisition, each ERP, there were standalone and independent finance and accounting organizations. Each acquisition or each business area might have had its own HR or IT support. So there was a whole lot of rationalization to do around even the organizational operating model and also the system landscape. So in that particular role, the approach that we took was the whole migration to shared services was managed within the CFO organization. So clearly you can't implement SAP without having your IT organization very heavily involved, but the focus was making sure that it was business led and having the systems support the business processes. So there was a VP leading the transformation. He reported into the CFO, and he had 4 workstream leads. I was one of those workstream leads focusing on shared services, and then there were 3 other workstream leads focusing on the order to cash, record to report, and procure to pay. So from a shared services perspective, the role that I had, it was evaluating different operating models. So again, do we go offshore? Do we stay onshore? Do we do something near shore? Do we outsource to a third party? Do we remain captive? So the decision through a lot of evaluation that we made was to build out a captive center, meaning our employees in a near shore location, so Central America. So we picked Costa Rica. Costa Rica actually is a location, many of you might know this, where there are a lot of shared service operations there. So a very talented workforce there in Costa Rica, affordable, and we also had a footprint there. We had real estate, so we were able to expand on that and build out our shared services, including P2P, in that location. So that also is a role that I had where I kind of shifted some of my focus from just looking at shared services build out to managing change. So I had a really heavy change management focus, and I'll talk about some of the specific tactics that I took that might help you in your journey. So after being at Fiserv there, I moved over to a pretty large consumer goods personal care company. So about a $20 billion company there. That company was very mature, very, very mature in terms of the systems being very established, the processes being very established, and shared services being very established. So it was a global operation, 4 regions that were distinct and independent of one another in terms of how the systems work. So there are 4 SAP instances, one for each region: North America, Latin America, EMEA, and Asia Pacific. The operating models for each one of those shared service center models varied. So it consisted of onshore, nearshore, and offshore models. There was captive, and there was also third party. So again, a very established, very embedded organization there. And the role that I had as global process owner for P2P was to manage change and put as much consistency and standardization across the regions as possible. So great role there. Then led me back to a role where kind of building out shared services. So through the experiences that I've had in these 3 prior roles, and probably a lot of you can relate, as you go from role to role, you really realize where your passion is, where your skills are, where you can really thrive and feel proud of the work that you're delivering. So I loved the opportunity that was in front of me at Evoqua. So again, enough for me to relocate from Atlanta to Pittsburgh, and it's great here. So working at Evoqua, I've been here about 3 years. When I came in, I was brought in to lead an effort to build out shared services. So it was kind of a concept. It had just been, and it was in the process of having a business case built out. I worked on the delivery of that business case, presenting it to our executive leadership team for approval. So we got the approval. The key benefit was cost reduction, being financially, cost efficient. So the journey was looking at different third parties. So we kind of knew we wanted to offshore and outsource. Our company, I would say, although $1.5 billion, it's not that huge of a company to really have a captive center work better than a third party. So we wanted to reap the benefits of a third party that had a lot of experience with shared services and P2P. So we evaluated various third parties. We selected one. We have our operations again in Pune and in Manila. So the role that I had there was to implement, own, standardize, improve, and really carry on the successes that have been built into future successes. So, in these roles, I really, took various challenges. I took some risks. I mentioned that I moved from FP&A into this space. That was kind of a new space for me. I was a little nervous. Is that really the right move for me? So I took some risk, and there were tons of opportunities. So, I really had the passion, which is a key part of any kind of change. And so it's been a great journey, and it's one where I'm happy to share my experiences and highlight where being proactive and persistent and passionate certainly helps manage change and deliver results. So with that, a key attribute, let's talk about being proactive. So have a vision and set goals. So with that, have a vision and plan for it. So, I'm going to share how I've been able to apply certain steps and approaches to how you define a vision. Let's be sure to set a goal, define your 5 key goals, refine your success criteria, and then report out. So I'm going to share along each one of these topics here some of my specific experiences that might help you in your journey. So, start with seeking and always have this vision of finding new ways to be efficient, how to expand automation, how to improve the customer experience, and overall generate organizational savings. So let's start with the vision. So P2P, again, is often one of the initial work streams that goes into a shared services operation. So what is the vision that you have? Maybe pause and think, if you're doing this specifically in shared services P2P, what's your vision? What is what are you striving towards? So the vision that I've always had is to pull work out of the business so that the business can focus on growing the business. So I know that's a bit wordy there, but if you think about what kind of procure to pay activities are in the shared services, are in the business, let's say. In your business, you probably have a lot of people that are spending time on requisitions, maybe getting email approvals on something to spend, maybe receiving invoices, maybe having to stamp it or code it, send it to AP. Think about all those processes that are not really value added to somebody in the business, but could be standardized and pulled into a centralized organization. So that's where I've always had that vision. Pull work out of the business that doesn't belong in the business, so that those resources are freed up to focus on generating more revenue or becoming a more lean and efficient and profitable company. So again, where do you start? What are the problems to solve, right? So you have this vision. Mine was pull work out of the business. What are the problems to solve? Those problems could be anything from being inefficient. It could be the quality of work that might be delivered. It could be the timeliness of your operations. It could be the cost. It's just too expensive the way you're currently operating your P2P. So I've always focused on efficiencies, right? So that's kind of where my passion is, continuous improvement and how can we be more effective and more lean. So, 3 things that I've applied. Maximize your automation and streamline processes. So we'll talk about the automation. Again, Taulia has enabled us to do that. So maximize your automation, streamline your processes, provide a better experience for your customers. So you do want to do that. You do want to provide a really good experience for your customers. You want to be easy to do business with. It makes a smoother process. It improves customer satisfaction. So provide a better experience for your customers. And then how do we expand our capacity without increasing headcount? So I'm sure all of us are challenged with that, do more with less, right? So in the P2P space, oftentimes you are reliant on a team, let's just say a help desk, right? Or people. Oftentimes you're reliant on people who are only working 8 hours a day, right? So how can we reduce the reliance on people that might only be working 8 hours a day? And how can we present solutions that are more automated solutions that are available 24/7? So that, those 3 things have been a focus of mine to meet the objective of freeing up time in the business by leveraging shared services resources. So again, focus on automation, focus on the customer service, being easy to do business with, and expanding capacity without expanding headcount. So then the next here, goals and results and report out. So define your goals. What are your top 5? Identify your top 3 to 5 goals. Stay focused on those. Report out on those. Measure those. So you all have probably heard the saying, you can't improve what you don't measure. So measure your top 5 goals. So some of the top 5 goals and the tactic that I've taken. So this is an approach I've taken. It might work for you. But if you can visualize a 4-block, many of us might recognize that, just a 1 PowerPoint slide, 4 different blocks on the PowerPoint slide. So on mine, this is a format that I use to report out to my leader on a monthly basis. I have a review with him and review my 4-block. Top left is my 5 goals. What are those 5 goals that I'm focused on this year? They don't change. Month over month, those 5 goals are there. And I'm always striving to achieve the metrics that support those 5 goals. Bottom left of my 4-block is the key metrics, a chart there. So what are the metrics? And I'll share some of those in a moment that I use. What are the metrics? What is your mid-year? What is the end of year? And what is the current month's goal? So how am I performing against those goals in terms of metrics? Upper right of the 4-block is actions or help needed. So it's not necessarily, I'm sorry, top right is next steps. So next steps, I'm not looking back. I'm not looking back at this is what I accomplished last month. That's kind of reflected in the metric. But what I am highlighting is what is next. So forward looking, what is next? This is what we're planning on doing to continue to improve upon the results. And then bottom left is help needed, actions or help needed. So it's okay to say, look, I need some help in this area. I need some guidance. I need some support, whatever it might be. And that's my opportunity to share that with my leader to again, gain the support needed to achieve my 5 goals. So hopefully that's something that either reinforces maybe something similar that you're doing or might give some ideas on something you can deploy that will help you with your change that you're doing within P2P. So always, focusing those goals again on the vision. Some examples of some of the metrics that I have reported out on in a prior company before Evoqua. We implemented, it was at Pfizer, we implemented SAP. We also implemented some other tools for procure to pay. We were managing change internally. We kind of were working towards this no PO, no pay approach. So PO compliance was a key metric. Every single month it was reported. It was a chart that was presented to senior leadership. It was supported by, the business areas that were either overperforming or underperforming. So we measured PO compliance and we managed change by addressing that each month. Also, after the fact POs. So that might also resonate with some of you. In my mind, an after the fact purchase order is it's waste, right? If you think about CI and lean, it's waste. If you have an invoice and then you create a purchase order, the only thing you're really doing there is maybe changing behavior a bit so somebody is more aware of how to create the PO. But we always measured the after the fact and we tracked that, published it to make sure that we decreased the practice of creating a PO after an invoice came in. In the current environment where I am, given that we have Taulia in place, one of the key benefits that we are gaining from Taulia and one of the key goals that I have is reducing paper. So eliminating paper that comes in from suppliers. We don't want paper invoices. I consider an email with a PDF attachment as being paper. So we are tracking our e-invoicing rate, and we are also starting to track our on-time payments. That kind of supports being easy to do business with. Also, some of the other metrics that we are going to start tracking soon is straight through invoice processing. So touchless. PO and invoice processing. And so lastly here, so on the report out there, I've talked about metrics, I've talked about the goals, WIGs. So I don't know if anybody has heard that before. I had not heard that acronym before I came to Evoqua, but wildly important goals. So I have wildly important goals. I have a few wildly important goals. My team members have wildly important goals. Each one of our executive leaders, they have wildly important goals. So we report out on those on a very consistent basis. It's part of my performance evaluation, and many of us have that. So, that's another concept that works well in our culture, and it's enforced or reinforced by support from leadership and by having this type of metric visible on any type of report outs. So being persistent. So that is another key attribute to a lot of the experiences that I've had in managing change. So in managing change, being persistent, change is possible. Change is very difficult, but change is possible. All steps that you take managing change does lead towards long-term objectives. So change management is really critical. You have to know your stakeholders. I'll share some tactics on how I have created a stakeholder map, how I've done some engagement with key stakeholders, how certain documentation and talking points provided to stakeholders has helped manage change, and then reporting out. Again, you can't really improve what you don't measure. So how through change management tactics can you translate actions into a report out on how you've been able to influence and change behavior? So being a change champion is really theme here in this conversation, and a theme with a lot of what we're doing with any kind of transformations. So that's just a real example of persistence and passion. So some very specific examples that I've used that might help you, or again, might reinforce some of the practices you have in place. Creating a stakeholder map. So, before I talk about these, I'll go back to one of the poll questions. And I would fit into the poll question around, I am kind of learning, in the role that I had, learning how to manage change in a more formalized fashion was where I was. I loved that role. So one of the tactics that I took was create a stakeholder map, right? Many of us have probably done this, but really think about, maybe we had about 20 people on our stakeholder map. Identify leaders in the organization and influencers, whether they're positive or not so positive influencers. Identify about 20 people or so, depending on your organizational size, and identify each one of these. Are they where do they fall on the spectrum? Are they a fan of the work that you're doing with building out shared services or migrating P2P to shared services? Are they a friend? Are they kind of on the fence? Are they a fence sitter? Are they a foe? So by having kind of a bit of an insight into the different types of stakeholders you have can help you identify different tactics to relate to your different stakeholders. So some of the tactics, engage, you'll see here, communications and lunch and learns. We all get a bazillion emails, right? Email overload, it's a way to communicate. So we certainly engaged our stakeholders through email campaigns. This is what's going on, this is what you can expect, this is where we need your support. So, we certainly did that, but we took a lot of other different tactics to engage our stakeholders. We conducted lunch and learns, informal sessions. This is the new process that we're implementing. We want to get your buy-in, whatever it might be, whatever topics, we conducted lunch and learns. We had pretty decent feedback and attendance in these lunch and learns. We also had quizzes and giveaways. So all these emails, everybody gets emails. You may or may not read them, right? But we would have quizzes. We'd have short emails, a paragraph. This is what are some of the highlights of our change. We are implementing Taulia. We are changing this process. We now require you to do this. Whatever it might be, every month we would have communications. Couple months into the journey there, we would have a quiz on one of the email communications. Answer these 5 questions. Everybody who gets, all correct is entered into a chance, to win an iPad. So that was actually what we did. And so we found that over time, we had a lot more opening of the emails. We could track that. We had a lot of responses over time come back around people having read and captured the answers to these questions. So that quiz with the giveaway was a really good way to engage folks and kind of give them a carrot, if you will, on a possible giveaway that they could win. We also engage our senior leadership by having these specific action plans. So we kind of made it an informal and some kind of a fun approach. So it would be one person, say myself, and partnered up with one of our leaders in the organization. Informal conversation. I would come in with a one-pager. This is what's going on. I would perhaps give them some speaking points. I would like to ask you to present these topics in your next staff meeting. I'd like to follow up with you next week and hear some feedback from you and your team on what you heard about these speaking points. So we really kind of gave these leaders some homework, and we followed up with them and hold them accountable. and it really helped us get feedback from the organization on where there might be resistance or confusion, where we might need to deploy some additional training or whatever it took. So those are some of the key tactics around the engagement. Talking points, compelling reason to change. So what's in it for me, right? You know, if I'm on the stakeholder side and all this change is going on, what's really compelling? Why do I need to change? So we created, again, a one-pager, being short, being precise, being quick with the messaging. How do you get your point across? So we created a one-pager, a compelling reason to change. It covered things like how to inform, you know, inform, this is what's going on. Motivate, that's the what's in it for me. And then activate, giving kind of some actions back to the stakeholders. So a compelling reason to change was something that we created, that we really were able to pull people into the solution and influence change. And then, of course, you know, report outs, report results. It might be the number of, you know, folks that responded to the survey or whatever it might be, but however you can move the needle by providing report outs was really helpful and impactful for us. So passionate, you know, have your passion. You got, you know, being passionate really also makes things happen. So I'm going to share how I've been able to own the journey and own the results and deliver on certain aspects of goals, achieving the goals that you've set. So, you know, when you hear passion, right, what is that? Make it happen, right? Make it happen. So part of making this happen, probably for all of us, or certainly me, is to engage the right third parties. You know, people, you really can't, well, I've learned that by engaging third parties really helps you expedite getting results around the problems that you're trying to solve. So from a P2P perspective, you know, I've focused on staying focused on your original objectives. Evaluate your partnerships, right? Evaluate who you do want to partner with and continue to monitor the success that you have with those partnerships. Implement solutions and then realize your goals. That's how you do it. You know, stay focused on your original objective and then realize your goals. So a double click on some of the experiences that I've had that might help. You know, me staying focused on the original objective. Our original objective, again, has been maximize the automation, streamline processes, provide a better experience, be easy to do business with, and expand our capacity without adding headcount. So a couple things I want to talk about on here. One is the selection of our third-party provider for operations, and then also some of the successes with Taulia and how the Taulia solution has really made some step changes for us in the P2P space. So a theme for us looking for the right third party is a couple things. You can see this on the screen here. We were focused on providers that were agile and flexible. That's our environment. We kind of need to change as priorities might change, or you know, if we're migrating from ECC to S4, we needed to have a provider, a partner that was agile and flexible. We want partners that are very experienced. We want user-friendly tools. We want proven results and innovation. So we selected a third party for operations. That third party is in Pune. And then also I'll talk a little bit about the Taulia experience here. So our key thing there with Taulia was taking advantage of some automation that we didn't have. So we, e-invoicing, I mentioned that. So our e-invoicing with the Taulia solution, we've been able to provide a solution to our suppliers where they have various methods of submitting invoices into a portal. Our portal is powered by Taulia. It is connected into our ERP. It's connected into both our ERP, ECC6 and S4 instances. So about a year ago, we were at about a 50% paper, 50% automation rate. So in my mind, not so good. So where we are now is about 70, and that is still a number that is lower than expectation, lower than our target. So being persistent there and continuing to pull in the expertise from the Taulia team to partner with our suppliers to migrate them to this new solution is critical. Also, the Taulia solution provides an early payment discount for suppliers who are eligible. So that's been another benefit and kind of support to being easy to do business with, and it's also helped us from a working capital in bottom line perspective. So also I would say, you know, there's a lot of benefits and a lot of steps that we've taken to manage change and really leveraging the Taulia team. So I think with that, I am going to kind of close this out now and say that, you know, all these aspects that I've shared, I hope that some of these can help you. Maybe it just might even provoke some thought on different ways that you can apply some tactics, some new ways perhaps, or again, maybe it validates a lot of what you're already doing. But one of the key benefits to take away is that we've delivered results, we've delivered cost savings, we've delivered efficiencies, and we have even gone beyond that by having our third-party offshore team focused on the operations. Our process owners onshore have been able to pause a bit, not completely meaning they, you know, have free time, but they do have more time to take a look at continuous improvements. And as I mentioned early on, we've been able to leverage RPA, so that's been a new thing that's really exciting for us. So yeah, overall, that is some highlights from my journey. Again, hope this may help you in yours.
That's great, Debbie. Thanks so much. Let's move to questions. Just before we do that, though, we've got a number of poll questions. So coming up on your screen now. So Debbie there was talking about her experience with Taulia. So we just want to find out a bit about how many invoices you process on an annual basis. So is it less than 12,000? Is it 12,000 to 60,000? 60,000 to 120,000 a year, 120 to 600,000 or more than 600,000. I think Debbie was talking about how Evoqua process about 300,000 today. So about 52% of you have responded. Closing the poll in 3, 2, 1. Let's have a look at the results there. Okay, coming up on your screen now. Good. So yeah, about just under half of you process 600,000 or more a year. That's probably not completely surprising. Okay, good. Thank you. So let's find out about how many suppliers you receive those invoices from. Is it less than 1,000, 1,000 to 5,000, 5,000 to 10,000, 10,000 to 25,000, or is it more than 25,000 suppliers that you receive those invoices from? And if you could respond to the poll, we're about 43% of you responding there. So closing the poll in 3, 2, 1. Let's have a look. So interesting results. More than half of you receive those volumes of invoices from more than 25,000 suppliers. So it's a lot of suppliers to be communicating with. And let's move on to the final question about where you are in terms of your e-invoicing journey today. So what percentage of your invoices are currently processed electronically? Is it less than 10%? Is it 10 to 25%, 26 to 50%, 51 to 75%? Or is it more, are you at more than 75% electronic? So closing the poll in 3, 2, 1. Let's have a look at the results. So about just shy of 40% of you are not really that electronic, maybe less than 10%, maybe nothing today. And going up the scale there with about just shy of a quarter of you processing more than 75% electronic. So well done to you. Okay, so thank you for that. And let's move through to questions that have come through here. If you haven't already posted your question, please do so. but we've got some good ones coming in here. So Debbie, let's start with a question. I think your WIGS kind of terminology there certainly has appealed to a few people. So and we've also got Beth coming in to join us for questions as well. Let's just remind ourselves of that. So what are some examples of your WIGS, would you say?
Yeah, so some examples of my wildly important goals is e-invoice, the e-invoice rate. So we were at 50% at the beginning of this year. We are at 70%. My goal for the end of this year is, our fiscal year just started, so I'm thinking fiscal year. We're October through September. And so we're at the beginning of our fiscal year. At the end of this fiscal year, my goal is 85%. I still think there's opportunity beyond that, but that is one of my WIGs that will be a carry it over WIG into this new fiscal year. I also have a WIG around, let's see, timeliness. So the number of invoices, the percentage of invoices that are aged over 30 days. I've got some other WIGs that are similar to that. I've got one on, GRIR. I have, so my AP manager has many WIGs. I have one on AP, and that's the automation. So my team has more, if you think about it, kind of like your traditional way of setting goals, they get cascaded from above. So I have one WIG for AP, and that is the e-invoicing rate.
Okay. To what degree are WIGs associated with bonuses?
Very much so. Very much so. So the way our evaluation performance management process works is we have specific goals that are our WIGs. So we meet or don't meet those, and then we have part of our performance evaluation kind of based on how we do things. They're kind of structured around some core values that we have within the company, and then so it's very tied to compensation in annual merit. Yeah.
Okay, good. So how, and this is for Debbie as well, how are you gathering KPI metrics? Is it systematically, or are you doing it through a manual process? KPIs around PO compliance and
that's a great question. That's a great question. So wherever we can get this systemically, automatically, is what we want to do. So we are able to get some automated results, not manual queries, but we're able to get some automated results through our dashboard that we have on Taulia on the e-invoicing rate. So that's one of our key benefits, and that's certainly part of our automation and where we want to focus efficiencies, is not to have to manually track and monitor and create metrics.
The job title of the individual leading the Taulia project, what would that be? And that's for you, please. The actual job title of the individual leading the Taulia project, who's owning it from a project deployment perspective?
A project manager within shared services.
Okay, can you tell us a little bit more about that, please?
Yeah, so it's business led. It's led by I'm the person accountable for it, and the project is managed within shared services, and the core team consists of folks from our IT organization, from Taulia, and also from shared services. So my AP manager is part of that core team, and some IT folks as well.
Okay, and Beth, if you could weigh in on that as well, in your experience, who do you see as the typical kind of job title that leads the Taulia project?
Well, I obviously I think it's somebody who has committed to change in the same way that Debbie has, and it's often it's a coming together of a number of people when we're kicking off an entire Taulia project, from implementation all the way through once the actual product is implemented, to getting to the tough work of how we do what we're doing with Evoqua right now. We are we have a business consultant like myself who is truly your partner through the entire journey. We are there every step of that way. And the good news is we are passionate about the same things that Debbie is. We are passionate about getting a business to move smoothly, all the way from moving smoothly with your suppliers, which is core foundationally, to having smooth processes all the way through the rest of the journey.
Great. All right, good.
Yes, Susie,
Go for it, Debbie. Yeah,
maybe one thing to add there. So having a project manager manage all the moving parts, having a subject matter expert be in there driving the solution. So those are two key roles.
Okay, good. All right, we are out of time. So Debbie, thank you so much for investing all the prep into all of this. And Beth, thank you so much for joining us. And listeners, thank you. Please look out for the next webinars that we've got coming up over the next few weeks, and do register for those. And we look forward to welcoming you next time. Thank you and goodbye.